The Galactic Accord had always been cautious with invitations. The Peace Summit, held only once every 5 galactic cycles, was not a place for novices. It was a gathering meant for the eldest of species, the wisest of empires, those who had survived extinction-level diplomacy and thrived in the long, cold silence between stars. So when the invitation was sent to Earth, most assumed it was a clerical error. Humanity wasn't even a full member of the Accord. Provisional observer status at best. Their application was still being debated in subcommittees. Yet, the invitation was deliberate. Stamped, encrypted, verified. A human was coming to the summit. Reactions were immediate and divisive. Within hours of the announcement, 12 of the 74 attending delegations announced their intent to withdraw. 7 more issued formal protests. One minor species declared emergency isolation status. News streams across 4 arms of the galaxy lit up in panic, speculation, and outrage. The reason wasn't hard to find. Humanity's record was unorthodox. In less than 500 cycles, they had gone from tribal warfare to spaceflight. Their wars had been frequent, brutal, and bizarrely philosophical. They fought not just over resources, but ideas, belief systems, abstract rights, even notions like freedom and truth. They were violent, yes. But worse than violent, they were idealistic. Humans didn't fear death the same way most species did. They charged into it for causes that made no biological sense to others. Honor, loyalty, love, concepts that often led to acts so illogical they terrified rational species. Entire civilizations wiped themselves out trying to contain ideological plagues. But humans? They thrived in that chaos. To the established powers of the Accord, inviting a human to a summit of peace was like introducing fire to a room full of paper. Yet the invitation stood, and so did the assigned representative, Ambassador Elias Reid. He arrived on a neutral diplomatic shuttle, quiet and alone. No entourage, no flag, just a simple dark suit, a translator patch at his collar, and eyes that didn't scan, didn't blink unnecessarily, didn't offer more than a nod to the waiting reception committee. The reception was cold, not overtly hostile. Accord protocol forbade that, but distant. Formal greetings, but no warmth. No small talk. Delegates turned away the moment introductions were complete. A few simply refused to be in the same room. Reid seemed unaffected. He registered his presence, confirmed access credentials, and moved to his assigned quarters without comment. Behind closed doors, the High Circle met in emergency session. "He cannot remain," hissed the Zillan delegate, whose species' entire leadership caste had been wiped out during the first contact skirmish with humans 50 cycles ago. "He is a provocation. He is a test," countered the Yulari ambassador, an ancient, crystalline being. "If we cannot host one human without fracturing, we are not a peace summit. We are theater." The debate lasted for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. The charter allowed any invited party, once confirmed, to attend unless proven in violation of summit law. Reid had broken no law. He was here. He would stay. In his quarters, Reid unpacked a single item, a folded piece of cloth. Old, frayed, a flag. No longer the Earth's sole banner, but a symbol. Red, white, blue. Stars in a box. He laid it across the desk and sat behind it, hands folded, watching, waiting. The summit had not yet begun, but the shockwave had. And in every corridor, every chamber, every whisper passed between suspicious delegates, one question rose louder than all the rest. The summit's atmosphere shifted the moment Reid arrived. Conversations grew quieter. Security details doubled. Delegates moved in groups, eyes tracking every hallway as if an unseen predator had entered the compound. The presence of a human wasn't just controversial. It was perceived as dangerous. Whispers filled the private lounges and side chambers. Some delegates believed humanity was a mistake of evolution, sentient emotion wrapped in flesh and conflict. Others saw them as a rising power with no leash, one that broke every mold of galactic development. The old species evolved over eons, their aggression bred out, Their societies built on logic and tradition. Humans didn't follow that path. They exploded into relevance. Fast, loud, unapologetic. In one confidential gathering, a senior delegate of the Venari Confederation recounted the Argo Rift incident, a skirmish where human crew, outnumbered and outgunned, held off a pirate fleet for 17 standard hours. Not for survival, not for victory, but to buy time for a colony ship they had no relation to. No genetic ties, no territorial claim, just strangers. That baffled many. It still did. Another representative from the Lyran conclave mentioned Earth's atmosphere, how it was considered barely survivable by most life forms, yet humans thrived. Their bodies adapted under gravity that crushed other species. Their immune systems were borderline hostile. One researcher once joked, everything on Earth is trying to kill them, including the humans. And somehow they like it. Old stories surfaced. Aboard a joint research vessel decades ago, a human engineer had performed field surgery on himself after an accident, without anesthesia, while continuing to transmit instructions to save the ship. The act wasn't seen as brave. It was seen as unsettling. Who does that? What kind of mind endures that? None of it made sense to the core members of the Accord. Rationality was the galactic standard, but humans were rarely rational in the expected ways. They gambled, they sacrificed, they laughed at the edge of war, and they mourned their enemies. No model could predict them. No psychological algorithm could map their triggers. That unpredictability bred fear, not respect. In one corner of the summit, delegates proposed barring Reid from the opening sessions. Not openly, of course, but through procedural technicalities, delays, re-verifications, biometric redundancies. A quiet shutdown. But Reid didn't budge. When approached, he produced every document, cited every clause, and recited rights granted by the Summit Accord verbatim. Not aggressive, not angry, just precise. His calmness was unnerving. Delegates were expecting arrogance or defensiveness. Instead, they got restraint, patience, clarity. To those who fear a monster, this was worse. It suggested discipline, control, purpose. Private communications between allied species began to reflect concern. He's not a soldier, one message read. He's something else, something trained to see further. Another read, they sent a diplomat, but one with teeth. Among the few who dared speak to Reid directly, some returned shaken. Not because of anything he said, but how he said it. He listened more than he spoke. And when he responded, his questions were deeper than expected. Not about technology. About motivations, cultural pain points, generational ethics. He understood the hidden fractures in the room faster than anyone anticipated. Even the summit's intelligence division flagged him, not for espionage but for inside density. His daily reports, available through diplomatic transparency rules, contained observations most analysts hadn't reached yet. He saw patterns in how species grouped, who avoided whom, which factions had silent histories. The Accord had been studying each other for centuries. Reid mapped it in days. A representative from the Trellin Combine, a species known for emotionless governance, summed it up privately. He's not here to impress us. He's here to learn how we break. The truth was becoming harder to ignore. The Peace Summit had always been fragile, a balancing act of long-simmering grudges, kept barely in check by shared interest. Humanity, in its first appearance, wasn't breaking the summit. It was exposing how easily it could be broken. The summit chamber was full, but no one relaxed. Even the air filtration felt tense, recycled silence clinging to every corner. Reid sat alone, his presence still viewed as an anomaly no one wanted to admit was earned. When the floor opened for initial statements, no one looked in his direction. Not yet. It was the Sirek ambassador who broke first. A long-standing diplomat, her voice carried weight. This summit was formed to ensure peace through understanding. Yet we now include a species whose most famous contributions are wars. Polite but sharp, their planetary history is defined by conflict. Their literature glorifies it. Their media celebrates it. We must ask, what do they know of peace? There was a murmur of agreement. Reid didn't flinch. Another delegate followed. The Zeltran representative, from a race nearly eradicated by proxy in a human pirate skirmish decades ago. They don't evolve. They erupt. In 5 centuries, they did what most of us needed 10,000 to attempt. Why? Because they didn't pause to consider consequences. And now they sit here among us, asking for a voice. Reid stood, slowly. No one called on him, but no one stopped him either. The room hushed. "We don't glorify war," he said, voice even. "We remember it because it nearly destroyed us. More than once. That's not pride. It's warning." Some scoffed. Reid continued. "You speak of our violence. Fair, but you mistake survival for worship. On Earth, we learned peace the hard way. It wasn't given to us by enlightened councils. It was carved out of blood and grief and desperation. When we say peace, we mean it because we've buried too many who didn't live to see it." His tone didn't rise. His face didn't harden. He spoke like someone recounting a storm he'd survived, not one he admired. "You fear what we are," he said, "but you never ask why we are that way. Our planet tried to kill us at every turn. Disease, disaster, each other. And still we built. Still we dreamed. That's not chaos. That's will." A few delegates shifted. Reid let the silence hold. "You value predictability. Stability. You built systems to prevent change. We didn't have that luxury. We adapted or died. You think we're dangerous because we don't break the same way you do. But we do break. We just rebuild differently every time." His eyes met those who'd spoken against him. "You accuse us of idealism. You're right. We believe in things you find irrational. Hope, honor, the idea that someone can choose sacrifice for a stranger. Those aren't flaws. They're choices, and they're the reason we deserve to be here." He stepped back, not because we are powerful, but because we understand what power can cost. No one spoke. For a moment, even the translation stopped, as if the system hesitated to process the implications. Finally, the delegate from a Jarithi collective, one of the oldest civilizations present, spoke. "You speak of pain like it is a teacher." Reid nodded once. "It is, if you survive it." The chamber held its breath. There were no cheers, no applause, just silence. Heavy, honest, the kind that followed truth too clear to dismiss. In the hours after Reid's speech, messages moved faster than ships. Delegates retreated into private chambers. Sub-councils formed behind locked doors, and 100 quiet conversations unfolded in every corner of the summit. No one admitted it, but everything had shifted. Among the core species, debate intensified. Some saw Reid's words as proof of humanity's threat. Passionate, yes, but too raw, too unpredictable. Others recognized something else beneath the words. Restraint, earned wisdom, the kind that only comes from surviving collapse. In one session, the Yalari delegate presented a motion to reevaluate humanity's summit status. Not revoke it, reaffirm it. The proposal was met with skepticism. The Zillan bloc, still bitter from past wars, resisted. "They mask danger in eloquence," one warned. "That's worse than open aggression." Then, unexpectedly, a voice rose in support. From the Trask Dominion, a species once pushed to the brink in a border dispute with Earth's expansion fleet. Their delegates stood, stiff and formal. "We fought them. We lost. But they stopped when they didn't have to. They rebuilt what we couldn't. And they never asked for tribute. Only recognition." That silenced the room. The Trask had never publicly acknowledged that conflict. To admit respect now was not political. It was personal. The vote followed. Simple majority. No speeches, no campaigns. Just yes or no. Humanity stayed. Not unanimously. Many abstained. A few voted against. But enough delegates had heard something in Reid's voice that mattered more than history. It was the tone of someone who'd seen what peace costs and still believed it was worth protecting. Outside the chamber, the air remained thick with unspoken questions. But the first threads of engagement began to appear. The envoy from the Venn coalition asked for a direct meeting with Reid. The Kethari delegate, who had refused to even acknowledge the human's presence before, offered a formal apology for a prior slight. Small gestures, but gestures nonetheless. Reid accepted each without ceremony. He offered no victory lap, no gloating. Only conversation. Only questions. He asked about species values, not technologies. Their memories, not their weapons. Slowly, suspicion gave way to curiosity. Tension softened. In a corridor overlooking the summit's central axis, a young diplomatic aide from the Lyran conclave paused as Reid walked by. "You don't belong here," she said. Not cruelly, just stating what many still believed. Reid stopped. "Maybe not, but we're here anyway. So the question is, what do we do with that?" She didn't answer, but she didn't walk away either. That night, as the summit continued behind its endless walls of protocol and procedure, Reid sat alone in a quiet observation alcove. Beyond the reinforced glass, a field of stars stretched endlessly, flickering through the atmospheric filters. Somewhere out there, Earth spun quietly, still unknown to most of the galaxy. He didn't smile. There was nothing to celebrate yet, but the door had opened. Not wide, just enough. Enough to prove that humanity didn't need to be feared to be respected. They only needed to be understood. And maybe, just maybe, that was the most dangerous thing of all.